So I want to discuss about One Piece. Not One Piece, yes, the One Piece series, but I'm not talking about like the One Piece, right? I'm not talking about One Piece as the anime. I'm talking about One Piece as the One Piece, the treasure, the big boy treasure that we're gonna be seeing, right? I will say I do think that the One Piece is going to be pretty huge, right? I will also say, I do have a theory that there's only a few people that may or may not see the One Piece. This probably may be debunked or something like that, but I really do think that there's like a few people that might see the One Piece when it comes with Luffy's crew, right? For example, Luffy's going to be the one who's going to be seeing the One Piece and what it looks like. I also really think that another person we'll see is Zoro or Nami and Jinbei too. But overall, when it comes with, the actual crew, I really do think maybe like 3 or 4 people might only see the One Piece, and then the rest would probably leave behind. The reason is because like people like Usopp will probably be dead by then, because he might like be sacrificing his life or something like that. But overall, also other people like Brook, they just want to see what's his name, Laboon, right, or like some other stuff, right, which is gonna be pretty interesting to really see about. I also think that the One Piece is not a treasure. I really do think that the One Piece is not. Oh, how do I say this? It's not just a treasure. I do think it's more than that. Keep this in mind. Treasure literally doesn't mean treasure, right? Doesn't mean millions of berries or trillions of berries. Treasures literally just mean, the amount of stuff that you have. You know what I'm saying? That is valuable to you. So when it comes with Goldie Roger, it could be the history, or it could be this or that or the third. Now, I also have a very interesting theory that there are one giant hieroglyphs, right? You do remember in the very beginning in Skypiea how pretty much Robin practically says, "Hey, there's actually multiple skyroclips, whatever they're called. Those giant things that has ancient writings on, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's probably multiple of them, but I think they all like lead to one big one. I really do think that this one will be where the One Piece is at. They probably hit it somewhere, so I'm not entirely 100% sure. Now, I'm pretty sure, I don't know his name, but that one grandpa guy that trained Luffy, I literally call him that because I forgot his name. The grandpa guy that trained him and literally used crazy amount of hockey just to show Luffy, how powerful he is when it came with that giant elephant training. Anyways, this guy literally says that they do know what happened in, the entire, I guess, I don't know, 100-year history when it comes with Luffy and all, or I mean not Luffy, but when it comes with the whole entire One Piece world, right? So because there is like 100 years that is called the void that is really missing, so we might be able to see the last 100 years or something like that within that specific area, because they probably hid it somewhere, so the government doesn't destroy it or something like that. Because in One Piece, the government is just kind of like those people who just like to destroy things, unless, what I'm saying, they make them look good, then just keep it on, right? But overall, when it comes with One Piece, right, I do think that the entire thing is probably going to be hidden somewhere, and they're probably going to be hidden somewhere, probably in the caves or something like that, but somewhere where it's like the least like expected, right? I will also say there's probably guardians or something like this, which is going to be pretty interesting if you really think about it, because if there really is some sort of guardian to guard One Piece, or like the One Piece treasure, which is going to be pretty interesting just to see like the fight of Luffy and like these guardians and stuff like this. I also do think that, I heard Laugh Tale is where, the Straw Hats kind of, not the Straw Hats, but like Goldie Rogers put the One Piece in. I actually do have another theory that it's probably either removed somewhere, like, maybe like someone's trying to get it, but it's probably like moved on somewhere, like it could be in a different island or something like that, or it could be like in Laugh Tale, but it could probably lead somewhere else than it. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, yes, he put it in Laugh Tale, but he has to go to a certain place. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like, I don't know. Do you remember like Stranger Things, and like there's like a bridge between a bridge, in a different dimension? It's kind of like that. But I do have a theory. For some reason, Laugh Tale is a bridge to another island that they have to go through in order for them to find the One Piece, right? And stuff like that. I really do think something like that might happen, but I also think that there is some sort of gods or something like that that might be securing those places. Maybe the four gods that they're talking about or something like that. I'm not entirely 100% sure. But overall, when it comes with the One Piece, I really do generally think that this is going to be the craziest, thing that's ever going to happen. I also really think that as soon as the One Piece hits, everyone's just going to go ahead and watch it. It's going to win nominees after I swear to God, this anime really deserves, more than a lot of people expect. I've also seen people say stuff like, yeah, by the way, One Piece is too long, and I might just watch, the remake and stuff like this. I'm looking at this, I'm like, wait a minute, this show is more than just the remake. I'm sorry, like I apologize, but that's literally what it is. Like it feels like this entire story is just more than just the remake itself and stuff like that. It's just, you know what I'm saying? Like watching the full 1,000 episodes is just going to be better than just watching, just, you know what I'm saying. Anywho, I'm kind of like lost track here, but I do really think that the One Piece could probably be a little bit more than treasure. I do think that they might go ahead and do a different island and stuff like that. And I do think that One Piece might be, something that will kind of like put everything in one giant hold. I also think that the entire One Piece might be also, being held by some sort of guardian within the entire treasure, unless, it would have been too easy to find, right? I mean, let's be honest here. Big Mama, you know what I'm saying? Like, here's the thing. There are really strong characters in the One Piece world, right? If these strong characters couldn't, literally get to the One Piece itself, there has to be something bigger, better, and stronger than most people anticipate, right? That is literally within the One Piece. Think of it as God of Gods and literally stuff like this. I also have a really, really bad feeling that Usopp might die where, this might be taking place. So this is why I actually think that, people like Usopp may end up, sacrificing his life and stuff like that. Like I said, I really do think only 4 or 5 people will go ahead and see the One Piece with Luffy. People who deserves to see the One Piece with Luffy, and I'm 100% counting on this, is people like Zoro or Nami and also Luffy. But there's also 2 other people I'm really thinking of, and it's practically, I was going to say Usopp, but I do really think he might die. So it's probably Jinbei or Brook. But I will say when it comes to those 2, or even Frankie, right? I think Frankie, no, never mind. No, forget Brook. I think Frankie might be the one who also joins, them and sees, the One Piece. Because the reality is when it comes with a lot of these other characters, they have other goals besides seeing the One Piece, right? I also think that the only reason why Zoro might go and find, go and see the One Piece is literally because trying to see that protective guardian or something. I mean, keep this in mind, if everyone, because everyone is so strong in the series, you know what I'm saying? I do think the reason why nobody have seen the One Piece is literally because of one giant reason. Not because it's real or not, but it's also because if you literally go there, you could probably get killed by this guardian and stuff like that. I mean, to be fair, the One Piece world is such a massive world to the point where I guarantee you there's probably even weak pirates that went there somehow, some way, and got defeated by some sort of guardian or something like this. I'm gonna stick to this part because the reason is because the thing is when it comes with anime likes to kind of have 2 things, right? First of all, it makes things absolutely hard to get. And the second thing, one final episode, one final fight for one final series. Let's make their entire goals. You know what I'm saying? Another really cool thing that I do think that One Piece might do when it comes with the whole One Piece thing when they find it is play the very first song they ever made. Not because it's nostalgia, the part where it says having hopes and dreams, that beautiful song that I absolutely love and still listen to. I'm gonna tell y'all something about this, okay? To be fair, this will be very fitting when it comes to One Piece. I think One Piece, if they do introduce something like this, I do think that it's going to be pretty interesting just to see, how, I don't know, like how they went through these entire stories or these entire arcs, from day one to now, going with Luffy and stuff like that. A lot of the characters really do have very interesting pasts when it comes with it. I'm not entirely sure what they might, see in the One Piece. I do have theories, stuff like that giant hieroglyph that they're thinking about, or maybe stuff like giant golds or stuff like that. I do really think that there is something in the One Piece area that is actually going to lead through also everyone's dream. I also think somehow Laboon is going to be connected to it. I may be an idiot, but that's literally what it is. I also think that Brook's past might be connected to it. I do think that his his age is just more than just a number that they kind of make a joke on. I do really think that Brook might have some sort of past that kind of ties to the One Piece that we may not know or he may not remember, or at least like within like maybe some sort of God territory or something, because we are entering in a world of God. I really do think that Brook might actually have some sort of past. Also, people like Jinbei and stuff like that. But overall, like, I'm being 100% serious. I really do think there's only a few people within the entire theory. I will say there's only a few people that they will probably see the One Piece, and those people could probably be Nami, Zoro, and these all other people out there. But again, I don't know. I'm just an idiot yapping online. Let me know what you think. Other than that, I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.